Okay, so picture this. You're a woman, let's say, in Singapore
Right.
or Malaysia. Your career's going great, you're independent, and maybe you're thinking, okay, I want kids eventually, but not right now. I'm going to freeze my eggs.
Right, like hitting pause on the biological clock.
Exactly. But here's the thing. In these countries, if you're single, using donor sperm for IVF, not an option. It's a whole legal gray area.
It's interesting, though, because while using the donor sperm is restricted, taking those frozen eggs and, say, going to another country for IVF, that's not actually banned outright. It's kind of a
A
loophole.
leak that opens up a whole other can of worms, right? So today we're diving deep into all of that, the ins and outs of exporting frozen eggs, especially for single women in Malaysia and Singapore who want to become mothers.
And it's not just the logistics. We're talking about navigating some really deep-seated social and cultural norms, single motherhood, even more so by choice. It's a sensitive subject in these cultures.
It's way more than just plane tickets and appointments, isn't it? We're talking legal hurdles, social pressures, and of course the financial aspect of it all. It's a huge decision.
Huge. And then there's the actual legal differences these women face. Both Malaysia and Singapore, their laws differentiate between, say, children of divorced or widowed mothers versus children born out of wedlock.
Okay, so break that down for us. How does that actually play out in real life?
Well, it affects a lot. We're talking access to state benefits, things like subsidies, even inheritance rights. It's a big deal. In Singapore, for example, they've got all these like pro-family incentives, tax rebates, housing subsidies, but unmarried mothers, they don't qualify. So from the get-go, they're at a disadvantage.
It's like running a race with a weight tied to your ankle. And then, on top of all that, you've got the financial pressure of it all. Often, these women are the sole breadwinners, so they're looking at IVF costs, raising a child,
Oh,
all on their own, mostly.
exactly. And the emotional toll. We can't forget that. Going through single parenthood without a partner for support, and sometimes even family isn't on board, that's tough.
It's like a double whammy almost. The pressure from
Yeah.
society and then potentially within their own families, too.
And that societal pressure, it's real. In these cultures, family structure is so tied to tradition, to cultural and often religious beliefs. So when someone chooses single motherhood, it can be seen as, well, rocking the boat. And that takes a toll on both the mother and the child.
Makes you think you're a kid growing up and your family looks different.
Yeah.
Maybe people ask questions or worse, they judge. That's a lot to handle.
It is, and it ties into another layer here. More and more you see Asian women opting for sperm donors from different racial backgrounds, Caucasian donors particularly. Part of its cultural influences, beauty standards, that kind of thing. But it also means these kids grow up navigating their identity in a society where that's not always easy.
It's about fitting in, feeling accepted, and honestly, potentially facing prejudice. And we haven't even touched on the actual logistics of getting those frozen eggs where they need to go. It's not like packing a suitcase, right?
Nope, we're talking about living cells here. Each one could be a person someday. So you've got to control the temperature perfectly, make sure they're handled correctly, and even then, IVF labs in different countries, their protocols might be different. All that impacts how viable those eggs are, and that directly affects the success rate of IVF.
So there's a real gamble involved.
Yeah.
Even if everything goes right, IVF with frozen eggs usually has lower success rates. It's a lot to weigh, emotionally, financially, and then just the uncertainty of it all, medically speaking.
And speaking of uncertainties, we've got to talk about where that sperm's coming from in the first place, the sperm banks themselves. Because not all sperm banks are created equal. There have been some cases that really highlight why you've got to do your research.
Yeah, the sperm banks themselves, like you said, not all created equal. And there's been some news stories lately about mix-ups or, donors not exactly being upfront about things.
Yeah, and those aren't small things either. Like, there was that case a while back. The sperm donor lied, basically, about everything.
Yeah.
Said he was this genius PhD. Turns out ex-con, who had fathered, get this, 36 kids.
36. Oh my God. Okay. No, that's a whole other, I don't even know. But it does make you wonder, how often does this sort of thing happen?
That's the thing. It really shows you how important it is to really do your homework when you're picking a sperm bank. A lot of them are super regulated. They've got these strict screening processes, but nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
There have even been cases of racial mix-ups where the parents thought they were getting one thing and boom, the baby's a different race entirely.
And those mix-ups, that's not just like a paperwork, oops, so to speak. We're talking families, identities thrown into disarray. It makes you wonder about the system as a whole, What kind of recourse do parents even have when something this big, this life-altering goes wrong?
That's the heart of it, isn't it? It adds this whole other layer of complexity to what's already a complicated decision. And then you get into the legal battles, the ethical questions, like that case with the single mom who sued the sperm bank because her kids, they were diagnosed with autism.
That one was everywhere. We were thinking, how do you even begin to figure out who's right and wrong in a situation like that?
It brings up all these questions about informed consent, like
Hmm.
what are sperm banks obligated to tell you about the donor's health history? Was this wrongful birth? Should the mom have been told more? Really nuanced stuff. It sparked a lot of debate about genetic testing and how much information should be shared and what rights everyone has, the parents, the child. It's a lot.
It's a minefield out there for these women. You've got societal expectations to deal with, legal hurdles, financial strain.
Hmm.
And then on top of all that, you've got to navigate the sperm banks themselves and hope the information is right and that you're making the best choices.
Yeah.
It's honestly incredibly brave to even consider going down this path.
It is. But even with all of that, there's something really powerful in it too, don't you think? These women are making the choice to become mothers. They're defining family in their own terms.
It really speaks to their resilience,
Yeah.
for sure. It's like you said, taking my body, my choice to a whole other level. But choice in this scenario, like you were saying, it's heavy.
Definitely. Because every choice has consequences, right? And in this case, it's not just about you, it's about your future children, your family. So going in with your eyes open, knowing the challenges and the rewards, that's essential.
So let's say someone's listening to us right now and they're thinking, this is me, this is my story. Where do you even start? What are the biggest things to keep in mind?
Knowledge is key, like we were talking about. The more you know about the laws in your own country and where you're getting treatment, the better. And then researching clinics, sperm banks, asking all the tough questions, those are crucial first steps.
Because you can't just jump into this, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more than just logistics too, right? There's a whole emotional side to it.
100%. Are you ready to deal with judgment? Maybe even discrimination? Have you thought about the support system you'll need, not just during the process, but like you said, for the long haul? Raising a kid on your own, that's a journey.
And what about talking to your child about all of this? How do you explain their story? It's a lot to think about.
Right. It goes way beyond just one person's decision. These choices, they might be deeply personal, but they're also changing the world, challenging everything we thought we knew about family and being a parent, especially now in the 21st century.
Makes you think, doesn't it? About how these choices, they could really change things down the line.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these women are in uncharted territory in a lot of ways. They're choices. They're making us rethink all these assumptions we have about what a traditional family even is, what it means to be a parent in this day and age.
And those assumptions, they don't just disappear overnight. It feels like we've got a lot of catching up to do, right?
Yeah.
Legally, socially, even just wrapping our heads around it all and accepting it.
Totally. You could say these women are pioneers, pushing boundaries, starting conversations that needed to happen a long time ago. Their stories show us, like, hey, we need more awareness, more empathy, and more support for all families, no matter what they look like.
It's about recognizing that family isn't just about, like, biology or tradition. It's about love, commitment, the support you share with the people you care about.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And it's important to remember, right? This isn't just some theoretical debate. These are real families dealing with complicated choices that have huge implications.
They are, and their stories. They make us look at our own biases, encourage us to approach these new ways of building a family with, open minds and open hearts.
Exactly. At the end of the day, isn't that what we all want? A world where every child feels loved and supported, accepted for who they are. Family structure be damned.
100%. It's a beautiful goal, even if getting there is messy and always changing.
It is, and it's a conversation we need to keep having as a society with those open minds and open hearts.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. The legal stuff, the societal pressures, those intensely personal choices and sacrifices. It's a lot.
It is. It really speaks to the strength and resilience of these women, creating their own paths to parenthood, even when it's incredibly challenging.
It reminds us that family is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And every family's story, it's unique. It deserves respect and understanding.
Absolutely. And like we've seen, these individual choices, they often spark these bigger societal discussions, right? About how we create a world that's more inclusive and equitable for all families.
And that's a conversation I think we'll keep coming back to here on the deep dive as we, explore more of these fascinating and complicated stories life throws our way.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully it's given you a lot to think about as you navigate your own journeys and this ever-changing world we're all a part of.